It was my wife's 40th birthday party. We were at our house. My parents were there, her parents, all our siblings, and a ton of friends. The house was packed. Everyone was laughing and drinking. It was supposed to be a good night, a celebration. Then, during the toasts, after everyone had said nice things about how great she was, how wonderful our family was, my wife Sarah grabbed the microphone from my brother-in-law. She swayed a little. She had definitely had too much champagne. A lot of champagne, actually. She smiled, a wide, slightly too wide grin. "Thank you, everyone," she slurred a bit. "This has been amazing. 40 years. Wow. And 38 years since I lost my virginity. Just kidding, mostly." A few nervous laughs. I smiled tightly. This was not going in a good direction. "But seriously," she continued, her voice getting louder, more emphatic, "I want to thank my wonderful husband, Mark." She pointed at me. Everyone turned to look. I raised my hand in a little wave. "Mark is truly special. He's been by my side through thick and thin. He's always supported me, even when things were difficult, like really difficult. You know, in the bedroom, the laughter died. The room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. My heart started to pound. What was she doing? My face felt hot. My parents were staring at me, mouths slightly open. Her parents looked mortified. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. Sarah seemed to feed off the silence. She leaned closer to the microphone, as if sharing a secret with the entire room. "Yeah," she said, her voice dropping a little, but still loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. "Mark, bless his heart, has always struggled with certain things, you know. Performance issues. The doctors called it impotence. Pretty much from day one." A collective gasp went through the room. My ears were ringing. "Impotence." She said impotence. "My wife just announced to everyone we know that I am impotent." I stood frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. The humiliation was so thick it was suffocating. Every single eye was on me. I saw pity in some, shock in others, and a few people looked genuinely uncomfortable. My gaze found my mother's eyes. They were wide with horror. She slowly shook her head, almost imperceptibly. And then the really messed up part hit me. The part that made absolutely no sense at all. The part that made my brain short-circuit. We have 3 children. 3 kids. Our son Leo is 10, our daughter Chloe is 7, and our youngest, little Max, is 4. 3 beautiful children, all of whom I love more than anything in the world. All of whom I have raised since the day they were born. All of whom I thought were mine. The math wasn't mathing. If I was impotent, as my wife just publicly declared, how did we have 3 children? How did we have 3 children? My mind raced. Was she trying to imply IVF? We never did IVF. We conceived naturally every single time. It was never an issue. Not once. I had never had any struggles, not ever. She knew that. Why would she say this? Was this some twisted joke? Some sort of delayed April Fool's gag? This was her 40th birthday. Not April Fool's. I finally managed to unfreeze myself. I walked towards her, every step feeling like I was wading through quicksand. My hands clenched into fists. My vision narrowed. The noise in the room was a silent roar in my head. I reached the small table where she stood. I gently but firmly took the microphone from her hand. Her eyes were unfocused, but she still had that strange, unsettling smile. "Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously low. "What are you talking about?" She blinked slowly. "Just telling everyone the truth, honey, you know. Being honest, it's good for the soul. The truth." This was not the truth. Not my truth anyway. My mind started to spin. If I was impotent, and she just told everyone I was impotent, then what about the kids? The 3 children we shared. The 3 children who were currently upstairs asleep in their beds. Unless they weren't mine. The thought hit me like a physical blow. A cold, dreadful realization. A pit opened up in my stomach. Was she confessing something else? Was this her twisted way of revealing a deeper, more devastating secret? The air felt thick, heavy. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room burning into my back. Everyone was waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to explain, to deny, to break down. I looked at my wife, the woman I had loved for 15 years, the mother of my children. Her smile faltered, replaced by a slight frown of confusion. She didn't seem to grasp the gravity of what she had just said. Or maybe she did, and that was even worse. "We need to talk," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but it carried in the dead silence of the room. I took her arm. Now, she pulled away slightly. Could feel the tears welling up, not from sadness yet, but from sheer mortification and a growing sense of dread. "We are leaving." My parents were already heading towards us, their faces etched with concern. My mom placed a hand on my arm. "Mark, honey, what's going on?" "I don't know, Mom," I said, my voice thick. "But we need to go home." Sarah's parents, usually so composed, looked like they wanted to disappear. Her father, a normally booming man, looked utterly defeated. My sister, Brenda, stepped forward and took the microphone from my hand, placing it back on the table. She gave a little fake laugh. "All right, everyone. I think Sarah's had a bit too much birthday cheer. Let's get her upstairs, shall we?" A few people started to murmur. A few nervous laughs broke out. The spell was broken, but the damage was done. The accusation hung in the air, thick and undeniable. My wife had just told everyone I was impotent. And we had 3 kids. It made no sense. And the more I thought about it, the more I feared what the real explanation might be. This was more than just a drunken confession. This was a bomb, and it had just exploded in my living room. I just hadn't grasped the full extent of the fallout yet. Not fully, but I was about to. I could feel it in my bones. The drive home was silent. Sarah was slumped in the passenger seat, snoring softly. She had passed out pretty quickly after I got her out of the party. Brenda and my dad helped me get her to the car. They were trying to be helpful, trying to clean up the mess she made. But the mess was more than just spilled champagne. It was a mess of my life. My reputation, my understanding of my own family. My mind was a whirlwind of questions. Why? Why would she do this? Why would she say such a thing? And what did it mean for Leo, Chloe, and Max? My beautiful kids, my kids. The idea that they might not be mine was a dark, venomous thought that was trying to take root in my brain. I fought it off. I had to. They were my kids. They looked like me. They had my mannerisms, didn't they? I pulled into the driveway. The house was dark, quiet. The party chaos was behind us. Now the real chaos was about to begin inside. I turned off the engine and just sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. I took a deep breath, trying to brace myself. This was going to be a rough night. I managed to get Sarah out of the car and into the house. She stumbled, mumbling incoherently. I got her into bed, still mostly asleep. I pulled off her shoes, covered her with a blanket, and then I just stood there, looking at her. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew. Who was she? What was going on in her head? I went downstairs, turned on a dim light in the living room, and sat on the couch. The room still smelled faintly of party, of perfume and food. But the celebratory air was gone, replaced by a thick tension. I pulled out my phone, staring at the blank screen. Should I call someone? Mark, my best friend. My sister, number not yet. I needed to confront her first. I needed answers from her directly. I knew she wouldn't be much help tonight. She was too drunk. I had to wait until the morning. The thought of waiting, of having this horrible question fester in my mind all night was agonizing. I considered waking her up, shaking her, demanding answers right now. But what would that achieve? A tearful, slurred non-confession. It would just prolong the agony. I sat there for hours just thinking, replaying the scene, her words echoing in my head. Mark, bless his heart, has always struggled with certain things. You know, performance issues. The doctors called it impotence. Pretty much from day one. From day one, that was a lie. A blatant lie. Our intimacy had always been normal. We never had any issues conceiving. It happened so easily with all three. We decided to try, and boom, pregnant. 3 times. I never had to go to a doctor for performance issues. I never had any performance issues. So why say that? Why invent that? Unless she needed a reason. A reason for having children who weren't mine. A reason to explain why I was their father, in every way but biological. That was the only thing that made sense, and it was a terrifying thought. My mind drifted to the kids, Leo, with his goofy laugh and his love for dinosaurs. Chloe is so sweet and artistic, always drawing. Max, our little whirlwind full of energy and mischief. I pictured their faces, their smiles. My heart ached. They were my world, my everything. Thought of them not being mine genetically felt like a physical tearing inside me. But then, if they weren't mine, whose were they? And who was this impotence lie designed to protect? Her or someone else? Was there another man or men? The questions piled up, forming a monstrous, confusing mountain in my head. I must have drifted off eventually, because I woke up with a start on the couch as the sun started to rise. My neck ached. My eyes felt gritty. The dread from the night before was still there, heavier now in the sober light of dawn. I got up, stretched, and went to the kitchen. I made some coffee. My hands were shaking slightly. Around 7 a.m. I heard movement upstairs. Sarah was awake. My stomach clenched. This was it, the moment of truth, or at least the beginning of it. She came down slowly, holding her head. Her face was pale. Her hair was a mess. She looked like she felt awful. Morning, she mumbled, her voice rasped. Rough night. Don't remember much after the first bottle of champagne. I stared at her. My voice was calm, almost dangerously so.
You said some things last night, Sarah.
Things you need to explain. She poured herself a cup of coffee. Oh God, what did I do? Did I embarrass myself? I hope I didn't say anything stupid. She took a long sip of coffee. You told everyone I was impotent, I said flatly. No emotion. Just the words. Her coffee cup clattered slightly on the counter. Her eyes widened. What? She whispered. Number I didn't. Yes, you did, I said. In front of everyone. My parents. Your parents. All our friends. You stood there with a microphone and told everyone I was impotent. And that I've been impotent pretty much from day one. She stared at me, her face draining of color. She looked genuinely shocked. Oh my God, she whispered again, hand flying to her mouth. Number I couldn't have. She looked away. I was so drunk, I don't remember any of it. Mark, I swear, I don't. That's not good enough, Sarah, I said, my voice rising slightly. You said it. And we have 3 children, Leo, Chloe, Max. How do you explain that? How does that math add up? She looked back at me, her eyes evasive. She wouldn't meet my gaze directly.
Well, you know, she stammered.
Things are complicated. We've had our struggles. Every couple does. It's not always easy to conceive, you know. Sometimes it takes time. That's not what you said. I pushed my patience wearing thin. You said I was impotent. Not that we had conception struggles. You said I was impotent. As in, incapable. And from day one, Sarah, what did you mean by that? What are you not telling me? She started to cry. Softly at first, then harder. I don't know, Mark. I was drunk. I was stupid. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. It was just drunken rambling, please. You know I love you. You know I love our kids. They're yours. Of course they're yours. Her tears usually worked on me. They always had. But this time they felt different. They felt like a deflection. A shield. The words sounded hollow. They're yours. Of course they're yours. She didn't sound convincing, not at all. A terrible coldness started to settle in my chest. This wasn't just a drunken mistake. This was a crack in the foundation, and I could see the truth trying to peek through, and it was ugly. Sarah's tears continued, but I felt nothing but a growing numbness. I'd seen her cry countless times over the years. This time, her tears felt less like genuine remorse and more like a way to shut me down, to make me feel guilty for even asking. It wasn't working. Not anymore. The words she'd slurred out last night had burned themselves into my brain. Sarah, I said, my voice flat, look at me. She sniffled, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, but still avoided eye contact. She just kept looking at the floor, or the ceiling, or anywhere but me. Look at me and tell me the truth, I demanded. Were you having an affair? Is that what this is about? Are the children not mine? She gasped, finally looking up, her eyes wide with what looked like shock. How could you even think that? How could you say such a terrible thing after all we've been through, after all these years? You think I would do something like that? You think I'd betray you like that? Her outrage felt a little too performative. It lacked genuine sting. You just told everyone I was impotent, I pointed out, my voice rising in frustration. And we have 3 kids. The only way those 2 statements make sense together is if the kids aren't mine. So yes, Sarah, I am thinking that. She crumpled then, sliding down the kitchen cabinets until she was sitting on the floor, head in her hands. I messed up, she sobbed. I messed up so bad. It was just the alcohol. It makes me say stupid things, you know that. I didn't mean any of it. It was a lie. All of it. I am so sorry. Which part was a lie, Sarah? I pressed. The impotent part. Or the part where the kids are mine? Be specific. She was silent for a long moment, just crying. I watched her, my heart heavy. I wanted to believe her. I desperately wanted to believe that this was just a horrible, drunken misunderstanding. But something in her reaction, her evasiveness, her carefully chosen words told me otherwise. Of course, the impotent part was a lie. She finally choked out, her voice muffled. You know you are not. You know that. Then why say it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I was just trying to hurt you, she whispered, looking up at me, her eyes red and swollen. We had an argument earlier that day. A stupid one. I was angry. I was drunk. I said the first thing that came to my mind to wound you. It was cruel. I know it was cruel. I am so sorry. Her explanation sounded hollow. It felt like a cover story. We'd had arguments before, bad ones. But she'd never ever sunk to such a level. She'd never publicly humiliated me, and the specific lie she chose. It was too precise, too targeted. It was a lie that implied a larger truth. That's not how you fight, Sarah, I said, shaking my head. That's not who you are. This feels like more than just an argument. This feels like you were trying to preempt something, to explain something away before it came out. She started to protest again, but I cut her off. I need to know, Sarah. Are the children mine? She looked at me, and for a fleeting moment I saw something in her eyes. Fear, real fear. Not the fear of a wife caught in a drunken lie, but the fear of a woman whose biggest secret was about to unravel. Yes, she said, her voice thin. Yes, they are, Mark. Of course they are. You are their father. The words were there, the affirmation I craved, but it didn't feel right. Her voice lacked conviction. Her eyes still darted away from mine. The pit in my stomach grew deeper. I didn't believe her. I walked away from her, went to the living room and sat down again. I needed space to think, to process, to figure out my next move. She came in a few minutes later, still sniffling, looking distraught. She sat on the opposite couch, watching me. Mark, please, she begged. Don't do this. Don't let a drunken mistake ruin everything. I'll apologize to everyone. I'll tell them I was drunk and it was a lie. I'll fix it. You can't fix this, Sarah, I said, my voice flat. Not with an apology. The words are out there, the implication is out there, and I need to know the truth, for my own sanity, for the kids' sake. What truth? She said, a hint of steel in her voice now. Truth is, you are their father. The truth is, I love you. The truth is, I made a horrible mistake by saying something I didn't mean, driven by alcohol and anger. That's the truth. I stood up. I don't believe you, not anymore. I went to my office, closed the door, and pulled out my phone. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't involved, someone who could be objective. I called Mark, my best friend since college. He picked up on the second ring. Dude, he said, his voice quiet. Are you okay? Brenda called me. She told me what happened. I can't believe it. I am not okay, Mark, I said, my voice breaking. I just confronted her. She's saying she was drunk. She was angry. She wanted to hurt me. She says it was a lie, all of it. That I am not impotent and that the kids are mine. Do you believe her? Mark asked, his voice gentle. I paused. No, I said, the word coming out with a painful clarity. No, I don't. Something feels off. Her reactions, her evasiveness. It's like she's hiding something bigger. And the impotence lie. It's too specific, too perfect for covering up something like this. I was thinking the same thing, man, Mark said. Look, I hate to say this, but you need to consider the possibility, the actual possibility, that the kids might not be yours. I know it's a terrifying thought, but her words last night, the impotent from day one part, that implies a long-term issue. And if that's true, how could you have 3 kids? It just doesn't add up. Cold dread from last night solidified into a terrifying certainty. Mark was right. The math just didn't add up. And I knew with a horrible certainty that I wouldn't be able to sleep, to eat, to function, until I had a concrete answer. I needed to find evidence. I needed to know the real truth. My family, my life depended on it. And if the truth was what I feared, then everything I knew was about to shatter. Mark's words echoed in my head. You need to consider the possibility. The cold knot in my stomach tightened. He was right. I couldn't just accept Sarah's flimsy explanation of drunken anger, not with the specificity of her lie. Impotent from day one wasn't just a random insult. It was a carefully chosen phrase, designed to explain away a decade of parenting. I spent the next few days in a haze. Sarah acted remorseful, apologizing constantly, trying to hug me, trying to reassure me, but every touch, every word felt like a lie. I couldn't look at her without feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. I couldn't look at my kids without a new, agonizing question burning in my mind. Leo, Chloe, Max, my beautiful kids, were they truly mine? I started to withdraw. I told Sarah I needed space. I spent more time in my office supposedly working, but really I was searching. I started with the obvious places. Our shared computer, our old photo album, old calendars from years ago around the times each of the kids was conceived. I was looking for anything, any anomaly, any clue. I started noticing small things. Sarah was suddenly very protective of her phone. She always had it with her, even in the bathroom. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly turn the screen away or lock it. This was new. We'd always been open with our phones. There was no reason for this sudden secrecy. Then there were her late nights. She'd always been a social person, but lately she was out more often. Girls' night, she'd say, or work event. But she'd come home later than usual, sometimes smelling faintly of a scent that wasn't hers, a cologne. I dismissed it at first, attributing it to my paranoia. But the instances started to pile up. One evening, while Sarah was out on one of her girls' nights, I decided I had to do it. It felt dirty. It felt wrong. But I had to know. I needed answers. I went to her old laptop, a dusty old thing she rarely used anymore. It was in a closet, almost forgotten. I turned it on. It sputtered to life. I tried to remember her old passwords. Birthdays, anniversaries, nothing worked. Then I remembered. Years ago, when we first got together, she had a habit of using a very specific, quirky password for everything. Something about her favorite band from high school. I typed it in. The screen unlocked. My heart hammered against my ribs. I started digging. Old emails, old chat logs. Nothing at first. Mostly spam, old work documents. Then I found an old email account, one I didn't even know she had. It was a Hotmail account, ancient. I clicked on it. It asked for a password. I tried the same quirky password. It worked. And there it was, a flood of old emails. I started scrolling through them. Most were mundane newsletters, old college contacts. But then I saw a name pop up repeatedly, Dave. And the subject lines were personal. Thinking of you. Can't wait to see you. Miss our nights. My blood ran cold, Dave. I knew a Dave. A guy from her past. Someone she briefly dated before me, but he moved away. She had always said they lost touch. I clicked on one of the emails. It was from around 11 years ago, just before Leo was conceived. The words on the screen blurred. It was intimate, full of longing, expressing how much she missed him, how she wished he hadn't moved. And then a line that hit me like a physical punch. Wish you were here, I feel so lonely. Mark is great, but sometimes I just need more. I wish we could have one more night like old times. One more night. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through more emails. There were gaps. But then, a few months later, another email from Dave. That night was amazing. Still thinking about you. Hope everything works out with your news. Your news, Leo. Leo's conception was around that time. The world tilted on its axis. I kept digging. I found a string of emails from around 8 years ago, when Chloe was conceived. More intense this time. Dave had moved back to the city for a brief period. The emails talked about meeting up, secret dates. One email, I know it's wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you and our time together. It makes me feel alive. What will we do about this? And her reply, I don't know, Dave. This is complicated. I am pregnant. This changes everything. Pregnant. With Chloe, who I had always believed was mine. My beautiful, artistic Chloe. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the laptop. The betrayal was like a physical pain in my chest. My wife, the woman I trusted, the woman I built a life with. She had been having affairs, not just one. Multiple. And now the true meaning of impotent from day one slammed into me with the force of a wrecking ball. She hadn't said it to hurt me in the moment. She'd said it to cover the tracks of a decade of lies. I kept going, even though every fiber of my being screamed to stop. I needed to know about Max, our youngest. 4 years old. I scrolled further back, looking for anything around that time. It was harder to find. The emails with Dave seemed to have tapered off or moved to a different platform. But then I found something else. It was in a different folder. A folder she had labeled work documents. But inside there were photos, not of work. Of her and another man. A different man. Someone I didn't recognize. And the dates. The dates corresponded with the time Max was conceived. There were selfies of them together looking cozy, intimate. And one photo, a photo of him kissing her belly. Her slightly swollen belly. Kind of belly you have when you are a few months pregnant. My vision blurred. I felt nauseous. 3 kids, 3 separate affairs, 3 separate lies. The math wasn't mathing because the numbers were never connected to me. I wasn't just impotent in her drunken rant. I was a cuckold. A fool. The realization hit me with a raw, agonizing force. Every laugh, every hug, every shared moment with my children felt tainted. Not because of them, but because of the fundamental lie at the heart of our family. I closed the laptop. The silence in the house was deafening. Sarah was still out. The kids were asleep upstairs. Their innocent faces flashed in my mind. They were the victims here. They were living a lie. And I had been living one right alongside them. My world, my entire reality, had just been obliterated. And I knew with absolute certainty that I could never go back to believing her. I had the proof. And now I had to confront her. Again. This time there would be no tears, no excuses, no more lies. Only the brutal, shattering truth. When Sarah finally came home, the house was silent and dark, except for the single lamp I had left on in the living room. It was past midnight. She walked in, looking tired, probably still a little hungover from her girls' night. She saw me sitting on the couch, the laptop closed on the coffee table in front of me. My face must have been a mask of fury and grief, because her expression changed instantly from weary to alarmed. "Mark," she said, her voice small. "What's wrong? Why are you still up?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch, letting the weight of the moment press down on us. The photos of her kissing another man, his hand on her pregnant belly, flashed in my mind. The old emails from Dave, filled with their secret longing and illicit rendezvous. My entire life a carefully constructed lie. "We need to talk," I finally said, my voice low and steady. It was the same thing I said the first time, but this time it was different. This time I had the evidence. She shifted, looking uncomfortable. "It's late, Mark. Can't this wait until the morning? I am really tired." "No," I said, my voice hardening. "It can't wait. Not anymore." I reached out and slowly, deliberately opened the laptop. The screen glowed, illuminating the desktop. I had left the Hotmail account open. The email from Dave with the subject line, "That night was amazing. Still thinking about you. Hope everything works out with your news," still visible. She saw it. Her eyes widened, flicking from the screen to my face, then back to the screen. The color drained from her face, leaving it ashen. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. This is from Dave, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. 11 years ago. Around the time Leo was conceived. Hope everything works out with your news. Your news, our news. Leo? She took a step back, shaking her head. Mark, no, that's old. That's old. That means nothing. Her voice was a terrified whisper. Doesn't mean nothing when I've read all the emails, Sarah. I pressed. All of them. The ones about one more night, like old times, right before Leo. The ones about I am pregnant. This changes everything around the time Chloe was conceived. And then these. I navigated to the folder with the photos. The ones of her and the other man. The one of him kissing her pregnant belly. The dates, clear as day, 4 years ago. Max. She let out a choked gasp, clapping a hand over her mouth. Her eyes were filled with horror. She was cornered. She knew it. The jig was up. You told me I was impotent, I said, my voice thick with betrayal. You told everyone I was impotent. Do you know why you did that, Sarah? Because it was the only way your story could ever make sense. To explain away the children you had with other men. While I, your loving, trusting husband, raised them as my own. She fell to her knees then, literally. Not with a dramatic flourish, but as if her legs had simply given out. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. This wasn't the fake, manipulative crying from before. This was genuine, raw despair. Oh my God, she wailed. Mark, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Sorry for what, Sarah? I asked, my voice breaking. Sorry for telling everyone I was impotent. Or sorry for lying to me for 10 years. Sorry for making me believe I was the father of these children. Or sorry you got caught. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. Her eyes were bloodshot. All of it, she choked out. Everything. I am sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I swear it just happened. Once, then it happened again, and then again. I just couldn't tell you. I was so scared, so ashamed. Scared, ashamed. I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. What about me, Sarah? What about my shame? My humiliation? What about the children? Our children? Who are they? Who are their fathers? Do they even know? Do you know? She shook her head, still sobbing. I don't know who Max's father is, I don't. It was just a stupid fling. A mistake, and Dave. He was just a friend. It was never meant to be anything more. But then you were so busy with work, and I was lonely. And he was there, and then I got pregnant. And I couldn't tell you. I just couldn't. I was so afraid you'd leave me. I loved you, Mark. I really did. You loved me, I scoffed. You betrayed me. You built a life based on a monumental lie. You let me raise children that aren't mine. That's not love, Sarah. That's manipulation. That's cruelty. The anger was starting to boil over. My hands were shaking again, but this time from rage. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to just physically manifest the devastation I felt. But the kids were upstairs, asleep. I couldn't make a scene. Not like this. Not for them to hear. I know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I know I am a terrible person. I know I don't deserve you. I'll do anything to make it right. Anything. Can't make this right, Sarah, I said, the words cutting through the air like knives. You can't unring this bell, you can't unsay what you said, and you can't undo what you did. I paused, taking a deep, ragged breath. Here is only one way forward now, and that's to find out the absolute, undeniable truth about these children. All 3 of them. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a fresh wave of terror. She knew what I meant. "We're getting DNA tests, Sarah," I stated, my voice firm and unwavering. "For Leo, for Chloe, and for Max. Every single one of them. And we're doing it this week." Her body went rigid. "No," she gasped. "Mark, please. Don't. What about the kids? What will this do to them? Please don't."
What about them?
I shot back, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. What about the lie they've been living? What about the father who thought they were his? This isn't about me anymore, Sarah. This is about them and the truth, and it's happening. Like it or not. I turned away from her, walked to the window, and stared out into the dark, silent night. My heart was shattered. My life was in ruins, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. The ambiguity was gone. The questions were answered. The painful, devastating truth was out. Now, all I had to do was confirm it, and then figure out how to live with it. And how to protect the 3 innocent children caught in the middle of her betrayal. The days that followed were a blur of tension and agonizing waiting. Sarah, after her initial breakdown and plea, became sullen and resentful. She knew I had her cornered, and she couldn't argue with the evidence. She still tried, subtly at first, to dissuade me from the DNA tests. "Think about the children, Mark. This will destroy them. What will they think? Or are you sure you want to know? Some truths are better left buried." But her words rang hollow, laced with self-preservation, not genuine concern for the kids. I ignored her. My resolve was iron. I had to know. For myself, yes, but more importantly for Leo, Chloe, and Max. They deserved to know the truth of their parentage, even if it meant a difficult conversation down the line. I didn't want them growing up on a foundation of lies, like I had been living for the past decade. I spent hours researching DNA testing services. I wanted something reputable, undeniable, and confidential. I found a few clinics that offered private paternity testing with legal chain of custody, ensuring the results would be admissible if needed for divorce proceedings. I scheduled appointments for all 3 children, explaining to the clinic that it was a sensitive family matter and discretion was paramount. They were professional and understanding. Telling the kids about the test was the hardest part. I decided against telling them the real reason. Not yet. They were too young to understand the complexities of betrayal and paternity. Instead, I framed it as a fun science experiment. "Hey guys," I said at breakfast one morning, trying to sound cheerful. My voice still felt strained. Sarah sat across from me, silent, staring at her plate. "Guess what? You know how we talk about DNA and how it makes you who you are." Leo, always curious, looked up. "Yeah, like the stuff in our cells." "Exactly," I said, forcing a smile. "Well, I found a place that can do a super cool test to look at your DNA. They just take a little swab from inside your cheek. No needles. And then they can tell us all sorts of interesting things about your unique genetic makeup. It's like a fun science project." Chloe looked hesitant. "Will it hurt?" "Not at all," I reassured her. "Just a little tickle, maybe." Like a big Q-tip, Max, ever the adventurous one, clapped his hands. "Can I do it too? Can I? Can I?" My heart ached, their innocence, their trust. I felt like a monster for even considering this, for putting them through it, but I knew it was necessary. Sarah said nothing. She just stared at her plate, radiating misery. Kids didn't seem to notice the tension, absorbed in the idea of a science project. The appointments were scheduled for separate days, to make it easier for logistics and to minimize the kids' suspicion that something unusual was happening. I drove each child to the clinic myself. Leo went first. He was excited, asking questions about how the DNA would be analyzed. Chloe was a little nervous but brave. Max just thought it was a game. Each time, as the technician swabbed their cheeks, I felt a knot of dread in my stomach. The moment of truth was coming, and I had no idea what it would reveal. During these days of waiting, my mind was a chaotic mess of emotions. Anger, grief, disbelief. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. Memories of the past 10 years played on a loop in my head. Leo's first steps, Chloe's first day of kindergarten, Max's first word. Every single milestone, every moment of pride and joy was now tainted by the knowledge of Sarah's deception. Was I their father in spirit? Even if not in biology, could I still be? Did I even want to be? The love I felt for them was real, undeniable, but so was the betrayal. I leaned heavily on Mark. We talked on the phone for hours, every night. He listened patiently, offering comfort and practical advice. "Whatever the results are, man," he said, "you are still their dad. You raised them. That counts for more than genetics sometimes. But you need to protect yourself too. This is a huge betrayal." My parents were distraught when I finally told them the full extent of my suspicions, sharing what I found on Sarah's laptop. My mom cried. My dad, usually so stoic, was visibly shaken. "I can't believe she would do this," my mom sobbed. "To you, to us, to the children." They offered their full support, whatever I decided to do. Sarah's parents were a different story. When I told them, they were in shock and disbelief. Her mother cried, begging me to reconsider. Her father was furious, not at Sarah but at the situation, at the embarrassment. "You can't just break up our family over a few mistakes, Mark," her father said, his voice cold. "Everyone makes mistakes." I just looked at him. A few mistakes. He clearly didn't grasp the magnitude of the situation. Or he was in denial. Either way, their reaction only solidified my decision. I was alone in this with my own family. The waiting period for the results felt like an eternity. Every phone call, every email notification made my heart jump. I couldn't focus at work. I barely ate. I slept fitfully, haunted by images of the children's faces and Sarah's deceitful smile. The tension in the house was unbearable. Sarah and I barely spoke, only when absolutely necessary, and even then our words were clipped, strained. Finally, the email arrived. The subject line was bland. Paternity test results notification. My hand trembled so violently I almost dropped my phone. This was it, the moment of truth. My breath hitched in my throat. I stared at the screen, unable to bring myself to open it. My whole life hung in the balance. My identity as a father, my future, everything. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a moment, and then clicked open the email. The PDF attachment was labeled Confidential Report. I opened it. 3 names: Leo, Chloe, Max. Each followed by a clear, undeniable statement. I braced myself. The truth was about to be unveiled. And I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that it would change everything forever. The PDF loaded slowly, agonizingly slowly. Each name was listed: Leo Anderson, Chloe Anderson, Max Anderson. Below each name was the test result. My eyes darted to the first one for Leo, my son. My 10-year-old boy who loved dinosaurs and told corny jokes. The report stated, Paternity Index 0.00. Probability of paternity 0%. 0%. My breath hitched. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. This couldn't be right. I looked again, forcing my eyes open. It was there, clear as day. Leo was not my biological son.
My head started to spin. My firstborn, the boy I had held in my arms the day he was born.
The one I taught to ride a bike. The one I stayed up with when he had nightmares. He wasn't mine. A profound, soul-crushing grief washed over me. It felt like a physical pain, a tearing in my chest, followed quickly by a cold, searing rage. Sarah, how could she? How could she have done this? How could she have let me believe this lie for 10 years? My sweet, artistic Chloe, 7 years old, her name was there. And below it, paternity index, 0.00. Probability of paternity, 0%. Another blow. Just as devastating. My daughter, my beautiful, smart little girl, also not mine. The tears started to fall freely now, blurring the words on the screen. 2 of them, both not mine. I scrolled to the last one, Max, our little whirlwind, 4 years old. I almost didn't want to look. I almost couldn't bear to see another 0. But I had to. I had to know. Paternity index, 0.00. Probability of paternity, 0.00. Probability of paternity, 0%. All three of my children. Tingdarius 20 Sivra side. All three of my children. Second mind T. Mall, Bilif. 2 Benandizia. Meister Vol. Batiev. My eternity 0% 100 times longer than you. I almost couldn't bear. Sapati index 0.00. Every single one of them was not biologically mine. 0%, not a single one shared my DNA. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The air left my lungs. I felt like I was drowning. My entire life, my entire identity as a father, as a husband, was based on a lie. A decade of my life, 10 years of love, devotion, sacrifice, all for children who were not mine. Children conceived through multiple acts of betrayal. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled to the bathroom, leaned over the toilet and vomited. Nothing came up but bile and the bitter taste of betrayal. I sank to the floor, my head against the cold tile, shaking uncontrollably. The tears came in a torrent, hot and stinging. Not just from grief, but from pure, unadulterated rage. How could she have lived with herself? How could she have looked me in the eye? How could she have let me love these children so deeply, knowing they weren't mine? Knowing the fathers were other men. Men I didn't even know in Max's case. It was monstrous. It was beyond cruel. After what felt like an eternity, I managed to pull myself together. My face was swollen, my eyes bloodshot. I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, a broken man. I walked back to my office, the laptop still open to the PDF. I stared at the names again. Leo, Chloe, Max. Even though the report said 0%, my heart still swelled with love for them. They were innocent in all of this. They were the victims, and I was their dad. I had raised them, I had loved them. Did a piece of paper change that? Does a biological truth erase 10 years of fatherhood? The conflict in my mind was agonizing. I loved them, I truly, deeply loved them. But how could I continue to live with a woman who had committed such a colossal deception? How could I ever look at her again without seeing the lies? I knew I couldn't. I picked up my phone, my hand still trembling. I needed to call Mark. He had been my rock through all of this. He deserved to know. He answered on the first ring, his voice quiet. "Hey man, any news?" "Yeah," I choked out, my voice thick with unshed tears. "Yeah, here is news, Mark. All of them 0%. Every single one." Silence on the other end. I could hear his sharp intake of breath. "Oh, Mark, oh my God. I am so sorry, buddy. I am so sorry." His voice was filled with genuine pain. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I whispered. "I don't know what to do. I have to tell her I know. And then, I don't know. Do you want me to come over?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not yet. I need to face her alone first. I need to see her reaction. I need to make her understand the depth of what she's done." I ended the call and took a shaky breath. Sarah was still in the kitchen, probably, waiting. Maybe hoping that somehow, miraculously, the tests would prove her right. Proved my fears wrong, but the truth was out, and it was far worse than anything I could have imagined. I saved the PDF to my desktop, then closed the laptop. I walked out of the office, the report's devastating findings burning in my mind. It was time for the final, ultimate confrontation, the one that would shatter what was left of our family. I found Sarah in the living room, still looking pale and defeated. She was curled up on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. The air in the room was thick with unspoken tension. She looked up as I entered, her eyes wary. She probably knew from my face, or the heavy silence I carried, that the results were in. I didn't say anything at first. I just walked over to the coffee table, picked up the laptop and opened it. I navigated to the PDF and turned the screen towards her. Her eyes followed my movements, a flicker of dread in them. "They're all here, Sarah," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "The results. For Leo, for Chloe, for Max." Her eyes fixed on the screen, scanning the names, then the percentages. As she read, her face crumpled, her mouth opened in a silent gasp. Her eyes welled up with fresh tears, but this time I felt no pity, only a chilling indifference. 0%, I stated, my voice steady. For all three. Leo, Chloe, Max. Not one of them is biologically mine. She let out a choked sob, burying her face in her hands. Oh God, Mark, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." Her words were muffled by her hands, but the sound was clear. "Sorry isn't good enough, Sarah," I said, my voice rising now, the rage finally bubbling to the surface. "Sorry doesn't cover 10 years of lies. 10 years of me believing I was a father to children you had with other men. Other men. How could you? How could you do this to me? How could you do this to our family, to the kids?" She looked up, her face streaked with tears. I didn't mean to. I never intended for it to go this far. It was just a mistake. One mistake. And then another. And I got scared. I was so afraid to tell you I thought you'd leave me. I loved you, Mark. I really did. I thought if I just kept quiet, if I just kept everything normal, we could be a family. A real family. A real family, I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. This was never a real family, Sarah. It was a lie. A beautiful, elaborate lie. Built on your deception. You let me raise children you had with other people. You let me invest my heart, my soul, my entire being into these kids. My time, my money, my love. All of it, based on a fundamental lie. My voice was shaking with anger now. And then, to top it all off, you announced to everyone that I am impotent. That I've been impotent from day one. That wasn't a drunken mistake, was it? That was your insurance policy. Your way of preempting the truth. To explain why I could have 3 kids but not be their biological father. It was calculated. Cruel. Malicious. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, it wasn't. It was just an angry outburst. I was drunk, I swear. I never thought anyone would believe me. I just wanted to hurt you in the moment. And you succeeded, I said, my voice cold. You succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. You didn't just hurt me, Sarah. You shattered me. You shattered everything I thought was real, my entire identity. I pointed at the screen. Do you even know who Max's father is? Do you even remember? Or was he just another mistake? She flinched. I don't know who Max's father is, she whispered, her voice barely audible. It was just a fling. I was in a dark place. I don't even remember his name. I just remember I met him at a bar. It was a terrible mistake. My stomach turned. Not only had she betrayed me, she couldn't even name the father of one of the children I loved so dearly. The depth of her deceit was unfathomable. This is over, Sarah, I said, my voice calm again, the rage subsiding, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Our marriage, our life together, it's over. I can't live with this. I can't look at you. I can't breathe in the same house as you. Not anymore, she gasped, her head snapping up. Mark, please don't say that. Don't do this. We can fix this. I can change. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. Please. Think about the kids, our kids. What about them? The kids, I repeated, the irony bitter in my mouth. Kids are the only reason I'm not walking out that door right now and never looking back. They are innocent in all of this. And I love them. I love Leo. I love Chloe. I love Max. And that love isn't going to disappear just because of a DNA test. I raised them. I am their dad. And I will continue to be their dad. But not with you. Not in this house. Not in this marriage built on lies. I stood up. I am calling a lawyer tomorrow. I want a divorce. And I want to figure out how to maintain my relationship with the children. Because they are still my children. In every way that matters. She started to scream then. Not a sob, but a raw, guttural scream of denial and fear. You can't do this, Mark. You can't. You are their father. You said you loved them. Don't abandon them. Don't abandon me. You abandoned me, Sarah, I said, my voice firm. Years ago, over and over again, you chose this path. You chose to build a life on lies. And now, you have to face the consequences. I walked away from her, leaving her screaming and sobbing on the floor. I went upstairs to the kids' rooms. I stood in the doorway of Leo's room, watching him sleep, his face peaceful and innocent. Then Chloe's. then Max's. My heart ached with a profound mix of love and sorrow. They were not mine by blood, but they were mine by every single moment of shared laughter, tears, and love. That would never change. But my life, as I knew it, was over, and a terrifying, uncertain future lay ahead. The days after the confrontation with Sarah were a nightmare. She oscillated between pleading, screaming, blaming me for destroying our family, and threatening to make my life hell. I ignored her. My focus was purely on the kids and on the practical steps I needed to take. I tried to keep a brave face for Leo, Chloe, and Max, but the tension in the house was palpable. They started to ask why Mom and Dad weren't talking, why Mom was always crying, why Dad looked so sad. I gave vague answers about grown-up problems, and Mommy and Daddy needing some time apart. It felt like another layer of lies, but I knew the full truth was too much for them right now. My first call was to a divorce lawyer. I picked a reputable firm specializing in complex cases. I laid out the whole story. The public accusation, the discovery of the infidelity, the DNA results. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Miss Davies, listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she looked at me with a mix of sympathy and professionalism. "This is a difficult situation, Mr. Anderson," she said, "but not uncommon, unfortunately, in terms of infidelity. The paternity results, however, add a significant layer of complexity, especially concerning custody and financial support." She explained my option. Since I was not the biological father, I might not have automatic legal rights to the children. However, because I had acted as their father for their entire lives, I could pursue legal avenues for parental rights, such as de facto parentage or psychological parentage. This meant proving to the court that I had a long-standing, loving, and financially supportive relationship with the children, and that it was in their best interest for me to continue to be a parent. It wouldn't be easy, and Sarah could fight me on it, but it was possible. The fact that your wife publicly declared you impotent, while simultaneously concealing the true paternity of the children, speaks volumes about her character and intent, Miss Davies said. It certainly doesn't help her case regarding honesty or suitability as a sole parent. The lawyer also discussed child support and assets. While I wouldn't be obligated to pay child support since they weren't biologically mine, if I fought for and won parental rights, I could potentially be ordered to contribute. It was a complex legal dance. My head swam with the legal jargon, but I knew one thing. I would fight for my right to be a father to those kids. They were my world. Next, I had to tell my extended family. My parents were already aware of the broad strokes, but my siblings and other close relatives needed to know. I called a family meeting. It was painful. My sister Brenda cried, hugging me tight. My brothers were furious, wanting to confront Sarah themselves. My dad, quiet and grim, just kept shaking his head. They offered unwavering support, which was a lifeline. Sarah's parents, on the other hand, were predictably defensive. I called them, telling them the results. Her mother dissolved into tears, begging me to reconsider. "Think of the grandchildren, Mark, please. Don't expose them to this. Don't ruin their lives." They seemed to care more about the facade of their family's reputation than the decade of deception. Her father was more pragmatic, even somewhat accusatory. "Sarah made mistakes, yes, but you don't just throw away a family because of this. You need to forgive her. For the children's sake." That's when the impotent accusation truly clicked into place. Sarah hadn't just said it to hurt me. She had said it as a preemptive strike, a way to control the narrative. If anyone ever questioned why I, a seemingly fertile man, had 3 children with a wife who was clearly engaging in affairs, she had a ready-made answer. I was impotent, and she must have gone to extreme lengths, maybe even with my consent for sperm donation or something, to have children. It was a brilliant, evil maneuver designed to make me look like the one with the problem, thereby diverting suspicion from her infidelity. It was sickeningly clever, and it had almost worked. The divorce papers were filed. Sarah was served. Her reaction was explosive. She accused me of being heartless, of abandoning her, of being selfish. She threatened to take the children and disappear, to tell them I was never their real father and that I didn't want them anymore. It was pure emotional warfare. I simply told Miss Davies everything. Miss Davies advised me not to engage, to let the lawyers handle it. Life in the house became unbearable. We were living under the same roof, but we were strangers, enemies even. The kids could feel it. Leo became withdrawn, Chloe started having nightmares, and Max was clingy and prone to tantrums. It broke my heart. I knew for their sake I had to move out. I couldn't subject them to this toxic environment any longer. I started looking for an apartment. Something small, temporary, but a place of my own, where I could process, grieve, and eventually heal. Finding a place was quick. I signed the lease, packed a few essential bags, mostly clothes and personal items. The hardest part was leaving the kids. I sat with them one evening trying to explain. Mommy and Daddy are going to live in different houses for a little while, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I am not going far, and I'll see you every single day. We'll still have our special pancake Sundays and our movie nights. Okay. Leo looked confused. But why, Dad? Sometimes grown-ups need to figure things out, I explained. And it's easier to do that when they have a little space. But it doesn't mean I love you any less. Never, ever less. Chloe started to cry, wrapping her arms around my neck. Don't go, Daddy. My own eyes welled up. It felt like I was abandoning them, even though I knew this was the only way forward. I hugged them tightly, kissing their heads, promising to call, to visit, to always be there. Leaving that house, knowing she was still inside, felt like cutting off a limb. It was painful, brutal, but necessary for my survival. As I drove away, I looked back at the house that had been my home, the place where I had raised 3 children I loved more than life itself. It was no longer a home. It was a monument to a decade of deceit. But as I drove, I felt a tiny flicker of hope, a chance to start anew, to rebuild, and to redefine what it meant to be a father, on my own terms, without the suffocating weight of a lie. The reckoning was over. Now the rebuilding began. The first few weeks in my new apartment were a strange mix of relief and profound loneliness. The silence was deafening after years of the usual family chaos. I missed the kids' laughter, their constant questions, the little messes they made. But I also cherished the quiet, the space to think, to simply breathe without the suffocating tension that had filled the house with Sarah. I started therapy, as Miss Davies suggested. It was incredibly helpful. Talking through the betrayal, the anger, the grief, the confusion, with an impartial professional, slowly started to untangle the knot in my chest. She helped me understand that my feelings were valid, that I was a victim of a monumental deception, and that my love for the children was real, regardless of biology. My priority remained the children. Despite the ongoing legal battles with Sarah, which were predictably nasty and drawn out, I made sure to see Leo, Chloe, and Max every single day. I'd pick them up from school, take them for ice cream, read them bedtime stories at Sarah's house, or bring them to my new apartment for weekend adventures. It was difficult navigating Sarah's resentment and attempts to poison their minds. but I focused on being consistently present, loving, and stable for them. I made sure they knew I wasn't going anywhere. "Daddy's always here for you," I'd tell them, over and over again. Always, the legal battle for parental rights was grueling. Sarah's lawyer argued that since I wasn't the biological father, I had no legal standing. My lawyer, Miss Davies, fought fiercely, presenting evidence of my decade of dedicated fatherhood, financial support, emotional bonding, and highlighting Sarah's public humiliation of me and her blatant deception. The court cases were emotionally draining, forcing me to relive the pain over and over. Eventually, after months of legal wrangling, a mediated agreement was reached. It wasn't perfect, but it was a victory. I was granted significant parental rights, including shared custody and decision-making power, ensuring I remained a central figure in their lives. While the court wouldn't declare me their legal father in the biological sense, they recognized my role as their de facto parent and deemed it in the children's best interest for me to continue to act as such. Sarah was ordered to pay me a significant sum in spousal support, recognizing the financial and emotional toll of her deception. It was a small measure of justice. Question of telling the children the truth about their paternity lingered. Miss Davies and my therapist advised me to wait. They were still too young to fully grasp the complexities of infidelity and non-biological parenting. They already had enough to process with a separation and divorce. When they're older, when they're mature enough to understand, then you can approach it with honesty and love, my therapist suggested. But for now, focus on being their father. That's what they need, and that's what I did. I was their father. I still took Leo to his soccer games, helped Chloe with her art projects, and chased Max around the park. The DNA results didn't erase the thousands of moments we shared, the bonds we forged. They were my kids in every way that truly mattered. And I was their dad. Life slowly began to normalize. I started dating again, cautiously, and told my story up front. It was a lot for people to take in, but I found that the right people were understanding and empathetic. I wasn't looking for a replacement for Sarah, or for a new family, but for companionship and a chance at genuine connection built on trust. The sting of Sarah's betrayal never fully disappeared. It was a scar, a permanent part of my story, but it no longer consumed me. The impotent lie, the original shock that set everything in motion, had led to a devastating truth. But that truth, once faced, also led to freedom. Freedom from a life of deception. Freedom to live authentically. Sometimes when I looked at Leo, Chloe, and Max, I would still wonder about their biological fathers. Would they ever meet them? Would they want to? I didn't know. But I knew that no matter what the future held, I would be there for them. I would protect them. I would love them, and I would always be their dad. The math, it turned out, wasn't mathing because the equation was built on a false premise. But I found a new equation, one where love, not biology, defined fatherhood. And in that, I found my healing and my future.